Abraham.
And your title?
Athletic trainer.
As well as former?
Former athletic trainer for the Toronto Blue Jays, assistant trainer.
Can you tell me, when it gets this heat, what is the concern with people exercising outside?
Well, a big concern is heat exhaustion. And unfortunately, heat exhaustion kind of creeps up on people a lot. And you don't really know you get heat exhaustion and heat stroke until finally you become dehydrated. And unfortunately, that's a very important emergency.
How dangerous can this heat exhaustion be, especially to younger athletes?
Well, unfortunately, the interesting thing is once we become thirsty, we're already, our body already tells us the mechanism that we're thirsty and we're already dehydrated. So before we become thirsty, it's important that we understand that we have to regulate the amount of fluid we drink very frequently.
As a professional, would you say to someone who is going outside to exercise, 90-degree weather, 85-degree weather, is it a good idea?
Well, this is a good time for sometimes people to take short, more breaks during their activity. Obviously, if there's shade around the activity, get under the shade, wear loose clothing, and obviously make sure the young kids get as many water breaks as they can. And let them take as many water breaks as they can, especially if they're thirsty.
Now, this is a week where a lot of summer basketball camps are starting. You know, there's not a lot of shade out on the court. You're on the blacktop. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on there?
I think it's important, too, prior to taking the court, that you become hydrated. And that starts during the day. So when you get up in the morning, during the day, take frequent drinks of water, whether it be fluids or Gatorade and Powerade are very popular drinks among young kids. If you're doing an exertion activity, usually beyond 1 hour, then some type of an electrolyte drink would be beneficial to the athlete.
Like a Gatorade?
Like a Gatorade or Powerade, or you can even make your own drink by putting some salt and some orange juice. But a lot of people prefer the Gatorade and Powerade because of the taste.
Now, I think a lot of little kids especially don't know their limits. So they're out there in the heat and having fun. I mean, what are the kind of signs and symptoms that coaches or parents should be looking for? Well,
one important thing is when you're sweating, that's the body's normal process of kind of letting off some heat. Becoming very red and the process of not having the body sweat is kind of a sign that the body is possibly going to go into heat stroke. So once you become dehydrated, lack of sweating is a real sign of heat stroke. Okay, becoming dizzy a little bit, nauseous is another sign that possibly you have heat stroke. So that's a kind of an emergency that people should look for, especially dealing with young kids, that they really don't know how much fluid they should take and how they feel, what heat stroke really feels like.
There are a lot of people, I saw them on the streets coming here, they're out running, they got their iPods, nothing stopping them. Is this maybe a week where people should be exercising inside at a gym?
Well, it's important that, obviously the time of the day that's the hardest is between 10 and 2 o'clock, 10 and 3 o'clock right now. When the sun goes down, obviously is a better time to do it. It's a great idea now to take advantage of your health club memberships, whether you belong to a health club or not, and stay indoor and exercise in the cool. Yes, that's a great idea.
Is there anything else you can tell us about exercising in the heat that I didn't ask?
Well, people understand that taking a little bit of water, a sip every few minutes is very, very important. The heat stroke is a very serious condition that all of a sudden appears before sometimes you don't even know you're getting into that heat stroke. I think it's very important that people understand that this weather, we're not used to this weather up here in the Northeast, and unfortunately when it comes, sometimes it's a little bit too late before we kind of realize how important becoming hydrated is. Especially, young kids are really important that they understand that drinking is important, but a lot of elderly especially really have to understand that because they lose their sense of taste and the sense of smell, they don't really like to drink a lot of fluid. So I really precaution the young kids and the elderly to make sure they take that extra sip of water or Gatorade or juice in the morning, and even take a little bit more with them as they're going on a long run if they decide to do that.
In your experience working with athletes, have you seen a lot of people pushing too hard in the heat?
Well, an athlete doesn't know how to stop, and pushing, even these young athletes nowadays, whether they're playing baseball, whether they're playing basketball, they're playing because they love to play, and usually it's a sign that athletes kind of tend to push themselves a little bit beyond, someone who has a chance who's at work, who can take frequent breaks and take some water, but because basketball, doesn't have any timeouts with it. And sometimes baseball players are out on the field for so long, it's really difficult for them take those breaks. So it's important when they come off the field or they get off the court, take those short breaks, take a little sip of water before when you come off the field, take a little sip of water before you go off the field, and make yourself safe.
Terrific. So breaks, water, shade.
Yes.
Big three.